There is a village hidden far from the bustling cities where life moves at its own quiet pace. The air smells of pine and the roads twist and turn through rolling hills, untouched by time. In this village, everyone knows each other, every creak of a door, every whisper in the wind feels familiar. Yet even in the most peaceful of places, there are secrets waiting to be uncovered. At the far edge of the village, nestled at the end of a winding road, stood an old wooden house. It blended in with the others, its walls weathered by the years, its roof covered in moss. Yet, there was something different about this house, something that lingered in the air, unspoken, waiting. This was the home of Grandma. She had lived here for as long as anyone could remember. Some said she had no family left, that she lived alone. Save for the dozens of cats that roamed freely in and out of her home, her love for animals was well known. She would often be seen walking through the village, her arms full of groceries, her mind preoccupied with her thoughts. Yet it wasn't just her pets that captured attention. It was the way they looked at her, the way they followed her every step, as though they shared a bond, one that was deeper than mere companionship. But among her many companions there was one cat who stood apart. It wasn't like the others. No, this one was different. It had come to her one autumn evening, following her as if it knew exactly where it belonged. It had no name at first, only a cold, hungry stare that softened when it found her warmth. It was an evening like any other, or so Grandma thought. The day had been long, her errands tiring, and she looked forward to the warmth of her home. But as she walked that familiar road, she noticed something unusual, a pair of glowing eyes watching her from the shadows. At first she thought it might be one of the village strays, a curious cat or perhaps a fox. But as the figure stepped forward, it became clear this was no ordinary animal. There was something about the creature. Its presence was both unsettling and captivating. It wasn't fear she felt, but rather an inexplicable pull, as though this meeting was meant to be. It wasn't just the markings that set it apart. The way it moved, the way it held her gaze. It felt more human than animal, as if it was trying to communicate without words. It wasn't like Grandma to bring home strays. Her house was already full, but this one was different. There was something in its eyes, something that spoke to her. The decision wasn't one she made consciously. Before she knew it, she was walking back down the path, the animal trailing closely behind her, its steps silent as a shadow. The villagers who saw her later that evening would whisper about it for days. "Did you see the creature?" they asked. What was it? A wild cat? A lynx? Or something else entirely? And just like that, the creature became a part of her life. She named it Vasia, a name that seemed to come to her out of nowhere, as though the animal itself had whispered it to her. But as much as she tried to convince herself that Vasia was just another stray, deep down, Grandma knew there was more to this creature than met the eye. And as the days turned to weeks, the truth would become impossible to ignore. The night carried an eerie weight, a kind of quiet that wasn't entirely natural. Grandma, seated in her favorite armchair, felt it too. A strange unease she couldn't quite shake. While Grandma dozed by the fire, the house's true guardian prepared for the storm to come. Fear gripped her heart as she stepped into the darkness, the sense of being watched stronger than ever. But before she could act, the figure lunged toward her, his intentions clear. It was Vasia. The creature that had seemed so calm and gentle now moved with a ferocity that defied belief. In that moment it became clear, Vasia was no ordinary pet. Its wild instincts and raw power unleashed, it fought with a ferocity that seemed almost otherworldly. As the adrenaline subsided, Grandma realized just how close she had come to disaster and just how extraordinary her companion truly was. But questions lingered. What kind of animal could fight with such precision? What secrets did Vasia hold? And most importantly, why had it chosen her? Morning arrived, casting golden rays over the aftermath of the storm. Grandma stood outside her house, taking in the broken windows and scattered debris. By her side sat Vasya, its golden eyes scanning the horizon with an air of quiet vigilance. The calm felt deceptive, as though the night's events had left behind more than just physical damage. While she surveyed the scene, her neighbour, Mr. Collins, approached. A retired wildlife biologist, he was known for his curious mind and a keen eye for the unusual. His gaze fell on Vasya, and a flicker of unease crossed his face. "Is that your cat?" he asked cautiously, adjusting his glasses as he stepped closer. Grandma nodded, recounting the events of the night, how Vasya had faced the threat with an uncanny bravery. Mr. Collins listened intently, his expression growing serious. Finally, he knelt before the animal, his hands trembling slightly as he studied its piercing gaze and unique markings. The more he observed, the clearer it became that this creature was unlike anything he had ever encountered. "This isn't just a cat," he murmured, almost to himself. Grandma's breath hitched as she leaned in. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Mr. Collins reached into his satchel and pulled out an old, weathered book filled with illustrations of rare creatures. Flipping through the pages, he paused at an image that bore an uncanny resemblance to Vasya. "This," he said, pointing to the page, "is a Eurasian lynx, but these markings, this behavior, Mary, this is no ordinary lynx. It's a hybrid, part wild, part something else entirely." Grandma's eyes filled with tears as the truth settled over her. The animal she had taken in, cared for and bonded with wasn't just rare, it was extraordinary. Mr. Collins explained how such hybrids were nearly unheard of, perhaps the result of genetic mutations or experimental breeding. Vasya's intelligence and instincts, he said, were nothing short of miraculous. "All this time," Grandma whispered, her voice trembling with emotion, "I thought it needed me." Quickly through the village about the rare creature living with Grandma. Neighbours arrived, eager to catch a glimpse of the extraordinary animal. Even researchers expressed interest. But Grandma, fiercely protective, refused to let Vasya become a spectacle. Instead, she marveled at the bond they had formed, realizing that Vasya had brought something back into her life she hadn't felt in years, a sense of purpose, wonder, and connection to the world around her. As the days passed, Grandma often found herself reflecting on the strange series of events that had led Vasya to her doorstep. It was as if fate had intertwined their lives for a reason, each bringing something the other lacked. Vasya wasn't just her protector, it was a symbol of resilience and the mysteries of life. One evening as the sun set, casting hues of gold and crimson across the sky, Grandma watched Vasya perched on a rock, gazing into the distance. Its presence was calm yet powerful, as though it were guarding something far beyond what the eye could see. In that moment, she knew that their story was far from over. Vasya was more than a companion or a guardian, it was a reminder of life's extraordinary capacity for surprises, its power to connect even the most unlikely beings. And with that thought, she smiled, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for the creature that had come into her life when she needed it most. The storm had passed, and the small village awoke to a serene morning, with dew glistening on the grass and the golden light of dawn washing away the shadows of the night. Inside her quaint cottage, Grandma sat by the window knitting a scarf with slow, deliberate movements. Vasya lay curled at her feet, its massive form radiating a calm strength. The house, once filled with echoes of loneliness, now felt alive with an unspoken bond that filled every corner. In the weeks following the terrifying incident, life had taken on a different rhythm. The neighbours, once indifferent to Grandma's quiet existence, now greeted her with warm smiles and genuine concern. Children peeked through the fence, hoping for a glimpse of the extraordinary creature that had become the village's silent hero. But Vasya, ever watchful, kept its distance, always close to Grandma, but wary of outsiders. One afternoon, as Grandma sat in her garden planting marigolds, she paused to watch Vasya sunbathing on the stone path. The way its golden eyes followed the fluttering of a butterfly, or the rustling of leaves seemed almost meditative. "You've changed everything, haven't you?" she murmured softly. In that moment, she reflected on the journey they had shared, from the fateful day she had found the strange kitten to the night it had protected her with a fierceness that belied its gentle demeanor. Her thoughts drifted to what the local wildlife expert, Mr. Collins, had said about Vasia's rare lineage, a creature born of wild and domestic worlds, existing in a space few could understand. To Grandma, it didn't matter. Vasia wasn't just a rarity to be marveled at, it was a part of her family, a guardian and a friend. One evening, as the village prepared for its annual harvest festival, Grandma decided to venture out with Vasia at her side. She had been hesitant to expose it to crowds, but something told her it was time. The villagers watched in awe as the majestic creature strode beside her, its movements graceful yet commanding. Children gathered around, their eyes wide with wonder, and even the elders couldn't hide their amazement. For the first time in years, Grandma felt truly connected to the community. In the quiet of that night, after the festivities had ended and the world had gone to sleep, Grandma sat on her porch, sipping chamomile tea. Vasia rested beside her, its eyes scanning the darkness as though protecting her from unseen threats. The stars sparkled above and the soft chirping of crickets filled the air. "We've been through so much," she said, stroking Vasia's thick fur, "but I think we've finally found our peace." Years later, the story of Grandma and Vasia became a cherished tale in the village, passed down from one generation to the next. It wasn't just a story of bravery or mystery. It was a testament to the power of kindness, loyalty, and the unexpected bonds that can transform lives. Grandma, now surrounded by friends and a growing family of rescued animals, often sat by the fire, sharing her tale with the village children. "And that's how Vasia taught me that love knows no boundaries," she would say, her voice tinged with emotion. The children listened with rapt attention, their imaginations alight with visions of the extraordinary wild cat and the woman who had given it a home. As the years went by, Grandma's story became a source of hope and inspiration, a reminder that even in the most unassuming lives, extraordinary things can happen. And somewhere in the quiet village, in a home filled with warmth and love, Vasia continued to watch over its human with the unwavering devotion of a guardian and the unbreakable bond of family.